Hello, my name is Jana Hussien. I was a mentee for the OpenStack Internationalization project, specifically the migration from Zanata-to-Weblate. And more specifically, my role was to migrate the scripts that are used by Zuul to perform automatic translation updates every day for use with Weblate instead of Zanata. So first, I just used the scripts that were already existing to perform a manual translation update for the Trove Dashboard project because there were dependency conflicts that were blocking the automatic updates. So then after that, I went more in depth on to understand how they actually work and how they interact with Zuul and Zanata. So that I could then migrate them to use with Weblate instead of Zanata. And so these three are the scripts that needed to be migrated, and this is a new script that streamlines the first time migration. So like creating the structure as it was here, like all the components, all of that, mimicking it in Weblate. So as you can see, I removed the master branch from Weblate just to give a demo. So I'll run the first time migration script for that. So yeah, after it looks for the release notes, it will upload all the POT files and create the components for them in the same call. And then it will enable the language for each .pol file it finds for translation and then upload those as well to the correct components. And there's some intricacies as well, like having to fall back to different language codes because, for example, in Zanata, Korean was like this, but in Weblate it's just like this. So sometimes there's differences in the language codes that have to be accounted for. So we fall back to using the language code without the dialect part. I also ran into some problems with like deciding whether to use the API or the command line interface. But I found that there were some things that I wasn't able to get to work with the CLI, so I just ended up using the API for everything. I also had a bit of problem, like don't get me wrong, that Weblate is very well documented, but I did find a bit of trouble finding examples for configuration without a version control repository, like a remote repository, because we want to have this one with just the local so that the Zuul does all the updates and not Weblate. We don't leave it to Weblate. So yeah, I just overcame those challenges by testing, looking through documentation, trying to find patterns. And apart from that, I also learned a lot to do with Docker containers, virtual environments, to have a consistent testing environment. And I also had to learn some syntax because I hadn't really used bash scripting in depth before. So that's another thing that this project helped me with. Now, my next steps are to continue working on these scripts because I believe they might not be super organized, or I might have to get feedback. I'm not sure if I'm interacting with the API the way I should be, or if there should be a Python object or something instead. We also, next step is also to integrate these scripts into the Zuul pipeline. So it will be integrated into a Python package that will make the use easier. And of course, to update the documentation, I did add a like paste of what I ran to get these scripts running, but I think it could use some more detail and ease of use. All right, so now it's stopped running and it prints a summary at the end of what has happened. So if anything failed, it retries it, and at the end it gives me how many succeeded and how many didn't. So we can see all of them succeeded. So if I refresh, I should have I have the new master component, and each has the categories inside it as well. Now, I just ran it on Horizon as an example, but theoretically it should work on any other OpenStack project as well to migrate to Weblate. There is just a problem right now, which is that if I go to one of these languages, for example, that says it has 0 translations, and I download the translations, it actually does have translations. I'm assuming the Weblate is not reading the files correctly. I'll have to look into it, but yeah, apart from that, the other two scripts work similarly, but this one, the upstream one, will just update the source strings to on Weblate, so the English uh, strings, and the propose will pull the updated translations from Weblate and push them to the repo. And this is just a file with common functions that they both use, or all three use. So yeah, that's all I've got. So thank you